We begin today with the news update on what we now know about what happened in Parkland. So we now know from the UK Daily Mail that not only was everybody around the shooter in Parkland actually calling the police over all of this, we now know that the shooter himself called the police on himself. According to the Daily Mail, it has been revealed that the Florida school shooter who killed 17 people after he opened fire at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School called the police distressed after his mother passed away just a few months ago. He called authorities just after Thanksgiving, saying he had been in a fight and was struggling with the death of his mother. He said, "The thing is, I lost my mother a couple of weeks ago, so I'm dealing with a bunch of things right now." On January 5th, a woman who knew the shooter called the FBI tip line and said, quote, "I know he's going to explode." She said her biggest fear was that he might resort to entering a school and just start shooting the place up. 4 days later, of course, he did exactly that. So warning after warning after warning after warning. Scott Israel is the sheriff of Broward County who's made a complete fool of himself. He came out earlier late last week, and he suggested that there weren't quite as many calls to the house as he had once been accused of. Apparently, there were people saying there were 39 different calls to the house by the police because of all the warnings about the shooter. He said, no, it was only 23. Only one problem, according to BuzzFeed, that is not true. They say Broward County Sheriff's officials said in a statement late Saturday they responded only to 23 calls involving suspected Florida shooter or his family over the years, but records obtained by BuzzFeed News show at least 45 responses since 2008. The number of calls made over the years involving the shooter or his family, according to the call records, are nearly twice the number publicly disclosed by the department. On Saturday night, they had released a statement pushing back on reports they'd been called to more than 23 incidents released by the department. They also put out a statement suggesting that it was not true, as we reported on Friday, or CNN reported on Friday, that there were 4 different deputies standing outside the shooting with their guns drawn, refusing to go in. But then they admitted that they actually did not know whether that was the case or not. So just absolute malfeasance, ridiculous malfeasance. The idea that anybody's going to give up their gun because the authorities are going to take care of them when the authorities clearly are not taking care of them. Yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with that. Not a lot of Second Amendment advocates going to sit around waiting for you to show up when you prove that you can't even show up to a school shooting when you have an armed school officer there. So just to show how ridiculous this is, Scott Israel finally appears with Jake Tapper on Sunday morning. Now, I was very critical of Jake and his role in what I thought was just an absolute debacle last week on CNN. They had a 2-hour CNN town hall with Dana Lash from the NRA and Senator Marco Rubio and Senator Bill Nelson, the Democrat, who was a hero to the crowd for suggesting that they ought to ban all semi-automatic weapons. And I thought Jake did not do a good job of handling that situation. I thought the thing was a setup from the beginning. I thought it was an emotional manipulation move. I thought it had nothing to do with disseminating important information to the public. It was just a way for people to vent their spleen and ire at Dana and at Rubio, 2 people who had nothing to do with the shooting, while completely ignoring Scott Israel. Scott Israel, the Broward County Sheriff, was there too. And as you recall, he ripped into Dana Lash. He ripped into Rubio. He suggested that these were the people at fault, not him. He had done a wonderful job. Well, then it came out literally within 48 hours that there was a deputy on the grounds who did nothing, that the police department had gotten warning after warning after warning after warning nearly 40 times or more than 40 times, according to BuzzFeed, and did nothing. And he went on stage with Dana Lash and he ripped her up and down, knowing that the culpability was, for the most part, his. So on Sunday, he comes back and he does his sit down with Jake Tapper. And Jake, this time, does a really good job. Jake grills him, and Jake makes him look pretty bad. This exchange is just astonishing. Scott Israel, the sheriff of Broward County, explaining that actually, in reality, his leadership was just amazing. His leadership was actually incredible.
Jake, I could only take responsibility for what I knew about. I exercised my due diligence. I've given amazing leadership to this agency.
Amazing leadership?
I've worked. Yes, Jake. There's a lot of things we've done throughout. This is you don't measure a person's leadership by a deputy not going into these deputies received the training they needed.
Maybe you measure somebody's leadership by whether or not they protect the community. In this case, you've listed 23 incidents before the shooting involving the shooter, and still nothing was done to keep guns out of his hands, to make sure that the school was protected, to make sure you were keeping an eye on him. Your deputy at the school failed. I don't understand how you can sit there and claim amazing leadership.
Okay, but Scott Israel did anyway. Good for Tapper for calling him on it. Too bad that they didn't have this information before that town hall when Israel was allowed to rant and rave around the stage like a maniac, blaming everybody but himself. Tapper went further than this. He said, "Are you really not taking any responsibility here?" He grilled Israel for suggesting that everything was hunky-dory. Here is Tapper going off on Scott Israel again.
Deputies make mistakes. Police officers make mistakes. We all make mistakes. But it's not the responsibility of the general or the president if you have a deserter. You look into this. We're looking into this aggressively, and we'll take care of it, and justice will be served.
Are you really not taking any responsibility for the multiple red flags that were brought to the attention of the Broward Sheriff's Office about this shooter before the incident, whether it was people near him, close to him, calling the police on him?
I mean, really, what the hell is he talking about when Israel says that this is like the president being responsible for a deserter? No, this is not like the president being responsible for a deserter. There you have an entire chain of command, and the deserter is punished in some cases with jail time and in rare cases with actual death penalty. In this case, not only was there one deputy there may have been 4 deputies there who did nothing. And again, there were dozens and dozens and dozens of warnings. If there were dozens of warnings that there was an attack about to happen, a specific warning, not just a general warning, specific warnings that there was an attack about to happen on 9/11, and the President of the United States ignored warning after warning after warning after warning that was brought to him, and all of his people did that, and then an attack took place and 3,000 Americans died, do you think that impeachment might be on the table? The answer is yes. People were talking about how Bush was neglectful of 9/11 based on one vague warning that airplanes might be used for a terror attack at some point in the future. One warning that I'm not even sure Bush saw at any point. He was ripped up and down for that. Israel's department was told dozens and dozens of times, 45 separate times, that the shooter himself called the police department and basically said, "Stop me." And the police department didn't do anything. And there's Israel claiming that there was nothing there. What's even worse is that Israel goes ahead and he says that he's heard reports before the town hall took place that his deputy did not charge into the fray. Okay, here's Israel admitting that he went on national television and by omission lied to the American public repeatedly during that special and tried to misdirect attention away from himself. This guy is just a despicable human being. Here he is.
Did you know it then? Did you know it Wednesday night?
It was spoken about during that earlier during that day. I'm not on a timeline for TV or any news show. We need to get it right. We need to get it accurate. We're talking about people's lives. We're talking about a community.
So he'd heard before, but he's trying to now talk about we're about people's lives and about the community. How about this? How about you go in front of the community and you go on bended knee and you ask their forgiveness for all of the crappy job that you did here. It is just an amazing thing that he says. And it gets even worse. It gets even worse because in just a second, I'm going to play you what Israel said when he was asked about what the department could have done differently, because it truly is an amazing thing. First, okay, so Israel is asked about when he knew that the deputies had not entered. He's asked again by Tapper, and again he misdirects the question.
When did you find out that Deputy Peterson had not gone into the building? How soon after the shooting did you know that?
Not for days.
How many days?
Investigators looked. I'm not sure.
He just didn't know. It was just a mystery to him. He can't remember. That answer means that he knew before the town hall. Here's the one that was really making the rounds. This particular response from Scott Israel. If this guy has a job by the end of the week, that is a blight on the state of government in Florida. He can be fired by Rick Scott. Rick Scott, the Florida governor, who's a Republican, who's come in for a lot of criticism from Israel, has said that he wants a full investigation before he fires Israel. That's probably not the worst move in the world, considering that he doesn't want the partisan blowback. He wants to be able to show, case in point, exactly how Israel screwed this thing up so that Israel can't claim it's a partisan hit. But if Israel had any sort of moral fortitude at all, he would step down. Obviously, he does not. And this quote shows that he does not. Look at this. This is just astonishing. So Israel is asked what he could have done differently, and his answer is it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling.
Do you think that if the Broward Sheriff's Office had done things differently, this shooting might not have happened?
Listen, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, O.J. Simpson would still be in the record books.
I don't know what that means. There's 17 dead people, and there's a whole long list of things your department could have done differently.
How could listen, that's what after action reports are. That's what lessons learned reports are for.
If ifs and nuts were candies and butts, well, what is he even talking about? What? And Tapper says there are 17 people dead. I don't even know what you're talking about here. What are you even saying? And the answer is he doesn't know what he's saying because this is complete nonsense. He's just saying random crap because this is what he's doing to avoid responsibility. So finally, he's asked if he's going to resign. And of course, he answers no, he's not going to resign.
The people responsible are the ones who took the calls and didn't follow up on them, as it was with the FBI, as it was with any person. Leaders are responsible for the agency, but leaders are not responsible for a person. I gave him a gun. I gave him a badge. I gave him the training. If he didn't have the heart to go in, that's not my responsibility.
So I gave him the gun, I gave the training, I gave him the badge, but it's not my fault if he didn't go in. How about it's your fault if you were told nearly 50 times what the shooter was doing? Again, all of this is an attempt to misdirect. Now, what's truly astonishing is you would expect the survivors, you would expect some of the victims to speak out against Scott Israel, and some of them are. There are some of the shooting victims who are actually coming out and saying that this sheriff is a coward and he did something wrong. These are not the ones, however, that you're seeing on CNN. You're seeing them on Fox News. You're not seeing them on MSNBC. You're not seeing them in the mainstream media nearly as much as you're seeing, for example, David Hogg or Gonzalez, the 17-year-old girl who's been on TV a lot. And you're seeing